Disagreements over the appointment of a CEO for the Gauteng Growth Development Agency has led to the board being dissolved. This is the second board to be dissolved by Gauteng Economic Development MEC Tasneem Motara. The acting Gauteng Gambling Board CEO, Karabo Mbele, has denied that governance at the development agency has collapsed. MEC Motara says she was left with no choice but to dissolve the board after a spate of resignations left it improperly constituted. For more on this, we're now joined by Advocate Anthea Platt, the former Gauteng Gambling Board chairperson. A very good evening to you. Thank you so much for your time. What would you say was the state of the Gauteng Gambling Board before the intervention of MEC Tasneem Motara?
Thank you and good evening, Paul. The state of the Gauteng Gambling Board was on a very good wicket. We were actually putting in place proper procedures and policies and also filling very senior positions. So at the time, before Tasneem Motara came on the scene, we were actually improving the gambling board from where it started.
So your former colleague, Karabo Mbele, who's the acting CEO of the gambling board, maintains the MEC was rectifying existing governance issues at the board. What were these issues?
There was no governance issues. I think what they raised was an issue with the Durban July, but proper procedures and policies were completed in order for certain board members to attend the Durban July. They also raised the previous acting CEO being in the position for longer than 18 months. But the Act allows for this, so this was complied with. And they raised something about bingo licenses, but none of this is backed up with any fact. So there were no corporate governance issues at all. In fact, the only issue that was at play was them wanting us to sign off an application for 10 million in December. And when the board refused to do so because we wanted to follow due process, then all the implications and interference came about.
So you say there were no governance issues at all, but allegations were leveled against you. Perhaps let's talk about some of those allegations leveled against you personally that were compiled within a document.
Sure. They were saying that we didn't, the acting CEO was there for longer, was there for 18 months. And we were in the process of finalizing a full-time chief executive officer position. We also fulfilled a chief financial officer position, and that we did in November, and he started on the 1st of January. So that position was fulfilled. So there was a lot of back and forth when MEC Motara came on in October, but we were at the tail end of fulfilling all of these procedures because we only started in January. And when we started in January, we had to complete a lot of backlog before the end of the financial year, which was the end of March. So our first 3 months was just set on completing the backlog and then starting with the process. So I'm not too sure what corporate governance issues there are, but if there are, they should actually then take us to court and say we failed in these aspects. But I doubt whether that would happen.
And I understand that some of the allegations leveled against you are being investigated and the public protector has also been roped in.
Yes. That is the issue of the Durban July. It's something that is part of our APP, which is the Shareholders Compact. So the Premier and the MEC is well aware of it and they approve it at the start of every financial year. So at the start of the last financial year, it was set in that we were going to the Durban July. It was agreed. The correct procedures were put in place to do that. We followed all the tender processes and the SCM processes. So Nahau at the time wanted an increase in the labor workforce, the salaries, and when they did not get the increase they wanted to, they lodged a complaint with the public protector. And then we duly assisted by the board. We submitted all the documentation to the public protector for investigation.
So the collapse of these two boards has really raised a lot of questions about governance, especially under the MEC, because the dissolution of the board essentially means that Karabo Mbele, the acting chief executive of the board, is directly accountable to the MEC, who becomes the accounting authority in the absence of another controlling body. what does that raise in terms of trying to get some depth on what exactly is going on there?
Well, it's quite serious because I'm told the Audit and Risk Committee was also terminated and disbanded. So there is no governance in place currently besides the MEC. And the Audit and Risk Committee is an important function, especially now when you're coming towards the end of your financial year and you need it to be audited to make sure that you have complied with all your policies and procedures. So right now it is very important that there's the necessary oversight, and there was no oversight for the last 3 months for the year end.
So what would you say now led to the board's collapse? I mean, you saying that there was no governance issues at all, and I take it that you yourself believe that you haven't done anything wrong. Correct me if I may be wrong. You know, where's the fault here?
Yes, no, I believe that our board did not do anything wrong. We've, in fact, refused to approve an application in December. In January, we were phoned by the MEC to find out how far we are, and we said the necessary processes needs to be followed. When that didn't eventuate into an approval, then they appointed Karabo Mbele. And when we had difficulties with that appointment, we were instructed to just do as the MEC says, despite our concerns. And in fact, before the board was disbanded, we actually placed the acting CEO, Karabo Mbele, and we suspended her due to a whole host of stuff that she was doing that was incorrect. And that suspension stands, and no one has challenged it, and she's still there today. So I'm concerned that you have somebody that is suspended, that is running the organization, and that hasn't challenged that suspension at all, which could have serious legal implications if her suspension is challenged and it's found that it's upheld. Then everything she has done since the 6th of February 2023 will come into question.
I would have liked us to really chat further, but unfortunately we have to leave it there for now. And thank you for your time, Advocate Anthea Platt, who's a former chairperson of the Gauteng Gambling Board and a practicing senior counsel.